Action.
Welcome to Off Camera, the UC Film Society radio show all about movies. I'm Ollie,
I'm Jake.
And I'm Cam.
and we'll be your directors for this episode. This week on Off Camera, we're doing a very special episode talking about all things horror. This episode will be released on Halloween, so for you guys, it's Halloween. So in celebration, we decided to do an episode revolving around Halloween to get you into that spirit. We'll be talking about our relationships to the horror genre, discussing some of our favorite horror films to watch during spooky season, some of our favorite Halloween costumes, and much more.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or Scary Halloween, if you want to be
it's
meta about
it's
it.
Spooktober.
Spooktober indeed.
Jesus. All right. Well, do we want to start and talk off how we feel about horror specifically, or Halloween/horror?
Yeah, let's do it.
I love Halloween. I love lollies. So lollies and chocolate, and they're free. I mean, bonus. And then you get to talk about and dress as a movie character. That's fun. Don't love horror. I will watch a horror movie every now and then, but I hate seeing them in cinemas. And I would prefer not to watch them at midnight, which is what my friends usually made me do. So, yeah, but horror itself as a concept is really cool. I love when like non-horror movies use horror elements or non-horror like content. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but there's one episode of The Mandalorian which really uses just horror concepts, even though the actual episode isn't scary, and it's fantastic. I love that sequence.
Yeah, some of my favorite horror scenes are from non-horror films. You know, it's always effective when you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
works
did
really
like
well.
that.
It's more powerful because you go into a
Yeah.
horror movie and you know you're going to get scared.
Yeah.
But you go into just an action movie.
Yeah.
And you get scared. It's even
Same.
scarier
Whoa.
in a way.
Great. Which episode was this?
It was season 1, episode 6, The Prisoner.
Yes.
On the prison ship with the two
Oh, yeah,
purple
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Twi'leks
yeah.
and
Got
the
it.
big
And that,
red Deveronian.
Yeah, it's
Richard
really
Ayoade voices a droid.
impressive in that episode.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
jeez,
Zero.
he's in like everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you think, yeah, all right.
It's really impressive when films can blend genres without feeling off tone. Like when it can switch into horror and not feel out of left field.
Yeah.
Well, like what was it? Multiverse of Madness.
Mm.
That was like everyone before it came out. Everyone was hoping that it'd be like a Marvel horror film, which would have been
Me.
really cool, and I probably would have watched it.
I
Except-
still would have watched it if it had been only horror. Even though I hate horror movies because it's Marvel and like at the time.
yeah, exactly. Same.
You watch every Marvel movie.
But it's just the first bit,
Mm.
the first that fight scene where they're in Carmitage, and the Scarlet Witch is like she's finding the puddles, and
Oh my god, that sequence is amazing.
then she comes out of the mirror, and then later when she's possessing herself from another reality, another universe,
Yeah.
and just like clambering down the hall with oil all over her face.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
sewer chase.
so cool.
great. That film doesn't totally work for me, but there's some amazingly effective
It did annoy
sequences.
me when they stopped and were like, "Is the door gonna hold?" instead of just running, which is a
Every
horror movie
time
trope
you-
that needs to disappear.
I'll just take any
That's
Sam
how we
Raimi
know
movie.
it actually was a horror movie.
Yeah.
because they did something dumb.
Sam Raimi is a hugely important director to me and the horror genre, and we'll talk about some of his films today.
Yeah. What was the first horror movie you watched?
It's probably Jaws, and I know you're going to say it's not a horror film, but in Letterboxd, it's under the horror genre. I
Okay.
think it is not just a horror film, but it certainly has horror elements.
It was a horror movie when it came out.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it as a kid, and it scared me. So I think,
How old were you?
I can't remember, but certainly
Single
not under
digits?
the, yeah.
Single
Yeah.
digits.
Yeah, because I was gonna say probably either Aliens or
Mhm.
Cloverfield,
Yeah.
but I think it probably would have been Jaws, but I just don't consider that a horror movie.
Yeah.
But that's because I think I probably would have been 10 or 11,
Mm-hmm.
and so old enough to recognize that it's a bit stupid.
Right.
As in, like, the horrorness
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
The stuff that's scary about it, I was old enough to recognize that that was fake.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do
Um,
think there's still some effective horror sequences, but it
Yeah.
now works more for me as a not action, but like an action adventure film
Yeah.
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 rather than horror film. But I do think there is the horror still there.
Yeah.
I will
absolutely.
say, whoever is curating Google's like movie genre list, why is Turning Red in the horror section?
What?
That's interesting.
Turning
I go by
Red-
Letterboxd because I don't trust.
The Turning Red Disney animated movie,
One of the latest Pixar movies.
yeah, Pixar movies, is in the horror category.
Haven't seen it, but I
It
doubt
doesn't
there's
have any horror
elements.
I don't think it does.
Maybe it's scary for a 4-year-old when the girl turns into a big red panda.
Fair enough. I'd be scared if my sister turned into a big red panda.
I'd be like, that's so cool.
Huh.
When do I turn into a big red panda? Yeah, so mine probably was Jaws, but I'd rather talk about Cloverfield
Mm-hmm.
because
The-
when I watched it, it was at a sleepover. It wasn't at midnight though. But I went in knowing it was a horror movie, and I came out going, there was one jump scare,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of it was an action movie.
Oh wow.
It's found footage
Yeah.
about a giant monster. It's pretty much like a Godzilla movie if it were horror.
Mm.
But it's found footage, and I have fond memories of it. I've only watched it the once.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember going in being scared to watch it, and there was this one massive jump scare when the creature first appears. And then after that, it's pretty obvious when it's going to appear again,
Mhm.
like in the sequence. So you're expecting it. Or maybe you're just expecting it to appear at any moment, but it wasn't like tense anticipation. It was just like, you know it's going to happen, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good movie. It's got a couple sequels, which
I saw 10 Cloverfield Lane. I haven't seen Cloverfield, but I've seen 10 Cloverfield.
you can watch them all on their own.
Yeah.
I've watched a bunch of videos about the whole interconnection of them, and it's very interesting because they're Bad Robot, so the J.J. Abrams production company,
Oh, yes. that is-
and it's disconnected, and it kind of reminds me of episodes 7, 8, 9 of Star Wars, in that they knew when they made the first one that they wanted to make more than one,
Hmm.
but they didn't have a cohesive plan, and they changed directors throughout.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Mm.
Yeah, so the stories for each one are quite different. Like, you get this kaiju in the first one.
Mm.
There's no kaiju in the second one.
That's very weird. Yeah.
No, because
10
I suppose
Cloverfield Lane is the second one. There's no kaiju in that
Yeah,
movie.
no, not at all. That
There is-
movie is very reserved and very quiet.
there is like different versions of horror though, because
Mm,
you've
for
got
sure.
like the standard like The Shining and It and stuff like that, where it's like a paranormal creature, but then you also have things like The Meg, which
Yeah.
is The Meg and Jaws, which is kind of like, okay, you know, there's this big monster and it's just like
yeah.
a slightly bigger everyday thing.
Have you seen the trailer for the movie about the killer sloth?
No,
No,
It's a horror movie, but there's a sloth, and they're the killer.
we're gonna have to watch that after.
we need to. Yep.
Also, Cocaine Bear. That's based on a true story.
Yeah.
But it's meant to
Except-
be a horror movie, isn't it?
No, it's more of a
it's-
comedy.
It's
Okay.
a comedy, except the real life story behind that is instead of going on a rampage, the bear OD'd and died.
Yeah, but
Instead.
for 15 minutes, he would have been insane.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been like that for 15 minutes, but no one was around to see it.
But that's actually really funny.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched Monster House?
Yes, I love
The
that
animated
movie.
The
Really
animated movie.
No, I've never seen it. I don't know why. Like, I remember hearing about it online and being like, how haven't I seen this? I
Yeah,
think
you'd
it just
love that
wasn't
movie.
on anything.
Mm.
Yeah, it was more of like a TV, like you catch it on the back of like the news or something
Yeah.
late night on like a Friday.
Yeah, like a 7 p.m.
I haven't seen
yeah.
it in ages, so I wonder how it holds up. But I do remember loving that.
Yeah, it is. You couldn't pick it like a children's film.
Coraline as well.
Oh,
Same-
that still gives me nightmares. That is terrifying.
Like same
but
sort of
it's,
vibe.
It's beautiful.
They're
though.
They are kids animated movies, but then they're scary. Like they are
Mhm.
Mm.
technically horror, but because it's for kids, it's done in a different way.
Yeah, it's more of like an immediate danger.
Yeah,
Then
you don't get that anticipation as much.
no, but the twist of like the house is his wife was
What?
like, oh, so
I
this
barely
is
remember
this
this
is
one.
mostly about a kid who lives across the street from this dilapidated old house and an
Yeah.
old man that if you put anything on his lawn, like a ball or a bike or something, he'll destroy it and get angry about it.
Right.
People like throughout the film they keep saying, oh, he's grieving for his wife, so or he's trying to protect his wife or something, where it turns out that the house is his wife and it's like it moves and it has a stomach and organs.
As in, his wife turned into the house, or his wife just is that he's married to a house that is sentient and alive.
His wife's soul is like in the house, I guess.
Right.
It's-
So she
it's-
died and then turned into whatever
And
happened.
turned into the
so
house.
she
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
person.
She
Okay.
was a
It's
person,
not-
I believe.
They're not being really weird and telling children, "Hey, you can marry a house if you want."
No. It's nothing like that. It's like they get eaten by the house. The rug in the in the atrium is her tongue, and they get swallowed down into her stomach, which is like the basement. And then I haven't watched it in a while, but
Yeah.
it is like kind of messed up for a kids film.
Yeah,
We
right.
should do a deep dive on it.
That would be
That
cool.
would actually be so fun.
I'd be down.
I want to do a
should
deep
done it
dive on a
first
kids
week.
movie.
I'd be down.
Okay. And then Ghostbusters. That's
Yeah.
like, what do we feel about Ghostbusters being
I think-
incorporated into the horror genre?
I think as soon as you start throwing in those Halloween-y sort of monsters,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to call it horror,
Yeah.
whether
Mhm.
it's scary or not. And I don't think Ghostbusters is scary, but I watched it for the first time last year.
But a
So-
horror. Oh wow.
So I wasn't scared of anything in it. But
Depends.
if I'd watched it as a kid when I was the intended audience as like 12,
Yeah.
maybe I would have.
That happened to me. And horror comedy is certainly a genre.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Oh,
a bunch
yeah.
of
Scary
like Shaun of the
movie.
Dead, scary movies, Scream, even though that's like, less horror comedy, that has so much comedy in it.
Mm.
It certainly exists, and that's more intended to, make you laugh, but also a bit frightened.
There's like
It's not
deliberate
true,
jump scares.
Yeah, it's not true horror.
Where I think, yeah,
So I think Ghostbusters should count under horror comedy.
horror comedy. That's true.
Even,
I think
even though like what makes it horror is more just the monsters, and there are some minor jump scares throughout.
yeah, definitely the first two Ghostbusters movies are more like they're more of that horror comedy, and then the 2016 one is just kind of
Comedy.
more comedy than horror, and then
That's
Ghostbusters.
the only one I haven't seen.
It's not worth it. Doesn't add
Well,
anything.
it
Have you
wasn't-
seen Afterlife?
Yeah,
Ghostbusters Afterlife.
it wasn't on. I
is
watched them all on
really
the
good.
plane, and it wasn't on.
It
the
was
plane.
good?
It was really good.
I really liked it.
I think they're making a sequel to it.
Yeah, they are.
So
I think it's meant to be coming.
I
out
know the
next year.
original cast comes back in that one.
yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's a.
It's
spoiler.
kind of like a. How much do you?
Sorry for spoiling.
That's true.
Afterlife.
Spoilers. Vankman comes back as a ghost and
Yeah.
kills.
It's like
people.
a force ghost. It's so
it's
funny.
weird, but it's funny, but it also kind of feels like when the old guys just turn up out of nowhere, it kind of feels like a
But it
nostalgia
does
moment
make
for the.
more sense though. It's like
Mm,
I think having a self-contained, separate Ghostbusters story would be really cool. As
mm.
in, like, the story is the same sort of ideas in the same universe. We know that these guys existed and that these events happened, but we're completely separate and we have to do it on our own. Especially being kids, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I think, given that from the outset, they said that the main character's grandpa was Vanklin, then there's already a connection to those original guys. The family knows them. Like, it's they're directly connected to them.
Yeah.
And so her mum, who is her only surviving parent, could just like technically ring them up and bring them along. And so when they hear about ghosts in the area that their granddaughter or their friend's granddaughter and family is in, it makes sense for them to go along and help out. I think the way they wrote the story, it fits into the story. As just a movie in general, yeah, they were brought in for nostalgia factor. But I do think it makes sense in the plot.
Yeah, okay.
But I would love to see a Ghostbusters movie which has no connection to the original ones, except that it's in the same universe and that the characters know of the events, maybe as like urban legend or something.
Right. Yeah, that would be good.
That's kind of like why do I always forget people's names when I was just looking at them? Paul Rudd's character, he thinks of the Ghostbusters of like there's footage of them, but it was more of like okay, they're gone now. It was probably
embellished. And
it was probably taken out of proportion.
He plays such a great character.
I love Paul Rudd, so I might just watch it for him.
Yeah, well, that's when I saw the trailers. I'd never seen any of the Ghostbusters. I was like, I want to watch this because Paul Rudd is in all the trailers and he looks great.
Mm-hmm. But it's definitely down to that, like, it's kind of like an 80s and 90s nostalgia, just like Gremlins.
Yeah. I haven't seen Gremlins, but yeah.
Gremlins were like, that's like as far horror as I could get when I was a kid.
Right.
But they were really fun movies. I think there's only 2 of them.
Yeah.
But I think the second one's better. Have you seen them?
No.
I feel like there's a movie like Gremlins. It might have been Gremlins. It might have been something in a similar vein that I watched like over my brother's shoulder, and like he was watching and I was doing something else.
Yeah.
And I would see bits and pieces of it. But I've never actually sat and watched Gremlins. What's the first horror movie you ever watched? Cam.
That's a good question. I haven't watched I know the first movie I ever watched in cinemas was Despicable Me, but that's the only one I can like actually remember.
That was the first movie you ever watched.
First movie I ever watched in cinemas, yeah.
Scary film.
This was like back when Hoyt Spellconnen was like, it had the starry ceiling and hadn't been upgraded, and the entrance was kind of small, and then you walked in and it was like this big, crazy thing that you couldn't see anywhere else. And
the first, speaking of scary movie, joking. The first movie I remember seeing in cinemas, though I don't think it was the first I ever saw, was Kung Fu Panda 1. And I think it was during the bridge scene. I was so scared of Tai Lung that I made my dad take me out of the movie and we left.
God.
I didn't see all of Kung Fu Panda until like probably year 5.
I think my first movie was Finding Nemo, and I remember the opening scene always scared me.
You saw that in cinemas?
I think my parents.
So you were really young.
Really young. But I don't remember it right.
You just know
I
that
think
you saw
I've
it.
heard that.
Yeah.
My parents tell me that. But yeah, that's the opening scene used to scare me.
It used to scare me when I saw it as a kid. I would just like shut my eyes and wait for it to be over.
Can I just get to the story part?
Yeah.
I didn't care about that scene. Now I think that scene is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Very
good.
interesting.
I don't think I can remember.
Jake, have you always watched like scary or Halloween related like monster movies around Halloween your whole life?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, Halloween is such a big thing, especially in America. You know, there's such a tradition to go out, get candy, dress up, and then watch a scary movie. And, you know, in October, all these scary movies are releasing in cinemas, and it was such a big thing to go to the movies, even if by that point I didn't really care about film. I just liked hanging out with my friends and going to do something. And, like, we'd all scream at a scary movie. So, yeah, I've always really watched horror films especially around October. Never been, like, my number one favorite genre, but, like, some of my favorite movies are horror films.
Because the reason I ask is I have heaps and heaps of memories of Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
We trick-or-treated my entire life as a kid. But I never watched Halloween movies, not horror movies, not just like, not even the Halloween Disney Channel movies.
I watched those
never
all the
watched
time.
Never watched anything like that. We would go trick-or-treating. we would meet up with like our neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'd probably come back to one of our houses, sit in the living room or in the backyard with all of our lollies like spread out in front of us, and we
Making
just
trades.
eat. No, not normally.
Oh, I used to do that.
Unless someone really didn't want something, normally we would just eat and chat.
That's good
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But we were in primary school. We might have the TV on, but I don't remember specifically going and watching like Halloween movies.
Even not around October, it was always just such a big thing at sleepovers to put on a scary movie at like
Yeah, that
2 a.m.
That's what it was for us.
Yeah,
it was like
right.
you'd go to a sleepover and you'd watch a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I hated horror movies, I started being like, no, stop that. We're not doing that. I think I broke that tradition, and they got really sick of me. And then I went to bed early one time, and my friends poured ping pong balls all over me, and that scared me more than the horror movie.
Yeah. I think the first time I watched Get Out, which is such an important horror film, was at a sleepover with all my friends talking, and I look back on it like that's such a disrespectful
Disrespectful
way to watch it.
Do you even remember anything of the movie like from then? Do you think after that?
Oh yeah, it
you
was so
remember it?
impactful that like it
Even
still
with that?
resonated.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't really love movies as much as I do now back then. But yeah.
How it seems like you got into movies really recently.
No, so I moved to America. I moved to Australia at the end of 2018, and I think in the middle of 2019, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, along with loving movies. I always loved movies, like watching film, going to the cinemas, but up until 2018, I only really saw, the blockbusters. My dad would show me some classics, but I was super into Marvel and all that stuff. And once Endgame happened, and then like I started thinking about watching shows, doing all this stuff, thinking about writing, thinking about making stuff. I think the film that like really, really got me was actually Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I was kind of getting into Quentin Tarantino as I was learning about writers, and that movie came out with movie stars I know like Leo DiCaprio, and went to see it, and I was like, man, I watched every Quentin Tarantino film after that. So that period was when I super got into film.
That's
I've always
really
loved
interesting.
movies, but that was like
I find that really interesting because the way it sounds to me is like, so you said you would watch movies, but you wouldn't really watch the blockbusters when they were coming out.
no, I would watch the blockbuster, but
you
only
would-
the blockbusters.
Right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
You wouldn't go and watch like movies that had
I wouldn't see the new Scorsese.
No, okay.
Okay, well,
Now, now I'd do that 5 times.
yeah, right, okay. Because the way like you've talked about it in the past, it sounds like you only really watched like when I say the basics, I don't mean basic movies, but I mean like
No,
the
you're so
blockbusters.
yeah, you're right.
The cult classics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
when I feel like when I look back on my watching, like I feel like I've always been. You say you didn't get into film until you watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I feel like I've always been into film.
Mm-hmm.
I just only realized I wanted to study it
Mm.
in year 12.
Yeah, interesting.
But like I wasn't going out and watching Scorsese movies.
Mhm.
I mean, I still haven't seen so many movies that are considered
Right,
classics and
right.
like must-watch movies. But I feel like I was well watched when I was younger, like for that age.
Mm-hmm.
Not like a connoisseur, but
Yeah, me too. I think it's a natural progression. You
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
Like, a 12-year-old doesn't need to be seeing, Citizen Kane. Like,
No.
what?
yeah.
But I think I found that I'd watched enough that it was the teachers would be able to make like a really old movie reference, and I would get it. And
Yeah.
that's
But
where
normally
where
the
I
really
felt
old movie
like-
reference was like Star Wars.
No, like probably Ghostbusters, yeah. And Gremlins, and like talking about you can't feed the kids after midnight, otherwise you'll know what happens. And
Yeah, right.
it's like, oh, I understood that reference. They're like, shut up, you're too young to watch that movie.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I feel like it nowadays. I feel less like I know movies. There was a There was someone I was in year 12 media class with. He kind of reminds me of you, Jake, where he like, you could think of some specific plot points or something from a movie that you couldn't quite remember, and he'd just remember it. Like his brain was just a Wikipedia of every single movie ever made, and it was insane. And that's where I felt like, oh, okay, I've like watched no movies.
I try to be that.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. You make us feel like that. So
that's not my intention.
You make us feel like we
You're
don't know
like
anything.
a god to us, Jake.
I'm trying to impart my
Heavy God.
knowledge.
No. All right. Do we want to?
Talk about our favorite horror movies.
Yeah, let's talk about our favorite horror movies.
Let's
Oh,
do
the first one I saw was Coraline,
Coraline.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
which still scares me to this day.
I've never seen the whole thing because I never watched it. My next door neighbor had a I think on a pirated DVD.
Oh.
In good quality, but it was burnt. It was just a silver disc with Coraline written in Sharpie.
Yeah.
And so we'd always go over to their house, start it, and then have to go home before it finished. So I've never seen the whole thing.
Yeah, me neither.
But was that because it was scary or because of a
I don't know. I
similar
just
reason?
never really
Yeah, right.
watched it.
Yeah, I think
I do remember it scaring me. Like,
I can't remember the ending.
I
but
never-
can.
See, I remember hearing that it was a scary movie and being like, what? Because I never got to the scary part. Like the first half isn't scary.
No, but it's still like spooky. Is it Tim Burton? It's
Yeah.
not- yeah.
It's written by Neil Gaiman. I think it's directed by Tim Burton. I'm not
okay.
sure actually.
Tim Burton did not direct Coraline. It was Henry Selick.
Henry
Oh.
Selick. Oh,
You
okay.
know that off the top of your head.
Because I was looking at it earlier on
All right,
Letterboxd.
yeah. There you go.
He just has this encyclopedia.
Okay.
No, it's
Favorite horror movies.
Should I give my favorite or the 10 I feel are like the most essential?
Can you do the 10 you feel are most essential and then your top favorite
Yeah,
separate to that?
but it's going to be in the essential list as well.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
But I'll give one that's not in the essential list,
Okay.
perhaps. So number one, and is my favorite, is The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, 1980, Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall. I mean, it's The Shining. It's probably the most iconic horror film I could think of. Ready Player One made that certainly known.
That's how I watched The Shining.
You guys have seen it pretty much. Have you guys seen Ready Player One?
Yeah.
It's so incredibly effective. Kubrick is a genius, one of the best directors of all time, and it's an adaptation. It's an adaptation that Stephen King famously hates, but I think it just has so many sequences that I'll never forget. Jack Nicholson's performance is so scary. I didn't see this as a kid, and thank God, because this would have truly, truly traumatized me. Don't show this one to your kids, or do if you want, them
If
to
you want to
have
traumatize your children, that's
you
not
know.
a good message to send.
no sleep. It's an amazing film, and I really want you guys to watch that one. If you guys watch any horror film, watch that one, because it's very scary, but it has master filmmaking behind it. So you guys will be able to appreciate like the levels behind it, I think. Have you guys seen a Stanley Kubrick film?
Don't think so.
Not that I can remember. Jake's disappointed. He just left the studio. Do you have a favorite? Is Stanley Kubrick your favorite horror director?
No, he's not a horror filmmaker.
No?
John Carpenter's
He's a thriller filmmaker.
A thriller.
he
But
does
is-
so many genres. He's done comedy, he's done sci-fi, he's done war, he's done thrillers. Like
Well, in that
I don't
section of his
I don't put him in a
repertoire-
genre.
In
Sorry?
that section of his repertoire, would you say he is your favorite, or do you have a favorite?
No,
horror
John
director?
Carpenter is probably my favorite horror filmmaker. He made Halloween,
Yeah.
Michael Myers,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he made The Thing as well, which is
Yeah.
There's so many of.
two just unbelievable horror films.
Okay, let's go through the rest of your list because I imagine they're both on it.
Yeah. So Psycho is number 2, old classic, famous for the shower scene that doesn't show any blood.
Yeah,
People
Hitchcock.
might watch it. Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock. People might watch it now and laugh because it's aged. It's aged.
Like, would you say it's still scary to watch now?
I think it's scary to watch now. I think it's incredibly effective in its horror.
Is
Some
it
people
is
say
it more
it's-
psychological now, or is it still like
No,
that's a scary thing that could happen?
no. It's a little bit of both.
Right.
Halloween, like I said, John Carpenter, Michael Myers. 4 is Alien, 1979, Ridley Scott, not Aliens like you've seen. Alien is much more slow and methodical and creepy than
Does-
Aliens.
Alien
Mhm.
doesn't have Ellen Ripley.
No, it does.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So many great sequences in that, and I love how it blends genre with the sci-fi elements of it. Draw me in, and then just hit you with the horror.
Yeah.
5 is Get Out, like I said, 2017, Jordan Peele, iconic film. I think it just permeated the culture like so well. You know, it got nominated for many Oscars. Black filmmaker making such an important horror film for like our day and age.
And going from his background,
Yeah,
in
comedy-
like a comedy duo with Keegan-Michael Key.
And Get Out is so funny, but it has so much cultural impact. You know, so much under the surface. Such a fun film to watch and discuss. Have you guys seen it?
No.
That we could do a deep dive about that and talk about that for ages.
I really want to watch it. It's one of the few horror movies that I
That
truly
one.
want to watch.
That Shining
That
and
that
one.
and Us, like both
Yeah,
of Peele's
yeah.
other movies, because I've seen Nope.
Yeah.
I really want to watch them,
Mhm.
but I'm scared. I need to watch them with people, because then I can discuss while we're watching.
Get Out is very much psychological.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like it's all psychological.
Right.
yeah.
Well, we'll organize something then and then deep dive on it
I'll be down.
In the far future.
in the very far future, next year.
6 is The Exorcist, 1973, William Friedkin, who died in August, sadly. But this film is as iconic as The Shining, maybe. I mean, this was a film I only saw it back in like 2021, but like this is a film, you know, people have talked about, especially my dad, like how it scared him so much as a child, like or whenever he saw it. And I think it's just so amazing. You know, it's pretty goofy nowadays, if I'm being honest, but like I love, you know, how kind of funny it is, especially in like when she's freaking out.
It had a major cultural impact.
Yeah.
And there's this true crime story about this girl who had severe psychological issues in Germany in the 70s. And she was saying she's possessed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, she wasn't saying she was possessed. She had severe psychological issues with seeing things, hallucinating, blah, blah, blah. And she was in a very Catholic family. And they took her to the priests, who said she was possessed. And there's a lot more to it than that. It's very intense.
Mm-hmm.
But she ends up having 67 exorcisms and dying from essentially the way that she was treated during the exorcisms. She was starved. She was she had malnutrition. She died at 30 kilos, aged 23 in 1976. And yeah, the Exorcist had pretty much just come out around then.
Yeah.
And the priest that did the exorcisms was known to be a big fan of The Exorcist.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
and she had already been in like medical hospitals before going to the church and getting them involved.
Mm-hmm.
And they had said she's got mental issues, like that's the problem. And then she kept getting worse, even though she was in hospital with medication, because her situation was just so bad. But they took her to this famous priest, who was the one who had seen The Exorcist and was obsessed with it, and he said she's possessed. They took her to her local priest, who actually knew her and actually cared about her well-being, rather than it being like an opportunity to do these exorcisms and follow in the fame footsteps of the movie and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the local priest was like, no, she's not possessed. She just has stuff going wrong, which is the case. But they still took her parents still took her to the famous priest, and yeah, she ended up dying.
That is messed up.
What a wild
It's
story.
rough, but
Wow.
yeah, that was like right after The Exorcist came out.
Wow.
So anytime I hear The Exorcist, I immediately think of that story.
No, I'm going to. Damn. Oh, that's
Her name
messed
was
up.
Anneliese Michel, or
It's in Germany.
yeah.
Wow.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw that on you.
That's all good. That's a lot.
I feel like we should have the lights off in here and like a candle.
We should have.
A candle.
And we'll just have the like.
Just tell scary stories.
We could have the lights off.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll turn the lights off.
Yeah. Okay, so your next horror movie on the list.
Jaws, 1975, Steven Spielberg. We talked about this. Famously, like one of the first blockbuster films. That to have horror in it shows that like horror can, you know, be this big thing, not just campy and not just low budget, and you know.
And what I didn't say when we were talking about it earlier, when it came out, it was absolutely intended to be a horror movie. Like, no doubt.
Yeah, that's why I consider it.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Like now, no way is it a horror movie. Like if the exact same thing, looking the exact same way, came out now, it would be a campy. It would probably be horror comedy.
It's the Meg.
Yeah, it would be the
Except
Meg,
not.
but
Probably better.
worse looking.
Yeah.
But it, like looking back on it, yeah, when it came out, it was definitely a horror movie. Just it's now not.
We're
scary.
now in complete darkness,
Yeah,
only
we should
illuminated
have
by
done
the
this from the
lights on
beginning.
our computers.
Um,
I will say in the Meg, that the one shot of the girl standing up against the window with the massive shark that just comes out of the haze of the ocean is just
Well,
amazing.
It is a horror movie. Like
Yeah.
they've got, despite what people say about the plot, it's still scary in that it's a horror movie. It's going to use horror tropes. It's going to use like horror shots and stuff like that. And yeah, it does that well. I mean, a massive shark is scary to people.
Well, that was the shot in the trailer that just went, this movie is going to be cool. It wasn't, but it looked like it would be really cool.
Yeah,
But it's just Jason Statham being Jason Statham, to be
like
fair.
he is in every movie.
Yep.
Which
Which is fine, but
Anyway,
8 is The Silence of the Lambs, 1991,
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan Demme.
Anthony
Anthony
Hopkins
Hopkins
as Hannibal Lecter.
and Jodie Foster as Clarice Sterling, I think. First horror film to win Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah,
Very important for that, to show that horror films can actually win awards, be prestigious. It's not, I don't really think of this as a horror film, kind of like Jaws, more of a psychological thriller, but it's certainly a horror film. You know, Anthony Hopkins' performance is so scary. He won an Oscar for that. Just an incredible film on its own, but as a horror film, it's also really effective. And just important for like showing that people can, you know, make horror films and have that, you know, make an impact and win something.
yeah.
They don't really win Oscars nowadays. They don't really get nominated still.
What was the
but
last one that you can remember?
that won Best Picture? Or
that
to get
won-
nominated?
That one.
Get Out won Best Screenplay. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
probably it. You know, they rarely get nominated nowadays.
Yeah.
9 is Blair Witch Project, 1999.
That is, see, I think there's something about found footage horror movies
Mm-hmm.
that are easier to watch
Mm-hmm.
because the camera is really shaky. It's like none of the scary aspects are as in focus.
Mm-hmm. It's so
Um,
scary, this film.
Yeah.
It's the
I
first
know,
found
like
footage
that's why I
film,
haven't
too.
watched it
Yeah.
because I know it is scary,
It's
even
one-
though I like the
Mhm.
idea of found footage.
Yeah, it's one of the first found footage and really popularized that genre of horror and moved that, which is such a big horror genre now. Like I just see a lot of those nowadays, like Cloverfield. When did Cloverfield come out?
2011.
Yeah, that
maybe?
film doesn't exist without Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
2008.
found
2008.
2008. Okay. Found footage is now like a massive thing
Mhm.
on YouTube.
Paranormal Activity. I mean,
Yeah.
that stuff.
Well, because it's like, it means you don't have to have a big budget. It's really good for indie filmmakers who don't have much money, and know like a little bit of VFX.
Mm.
Because you can, I forget, there's one YouTube video that really, like, it gave me proper chills, and it was a car that's driving along this dirt road in the dark, and there's just a person standing in the middle of the road. The car stops, backs up and turns around, and then keeps driving,
Mm.
and then they keep driving straight back along this road, but then end up at the same spot they just were. So they drove past like a fence on the first bit, turn around, came back, and they drive past the same fence, and the woman's still standing in the middle of the road, and it's just that's chills because of the way that they warped the space time there. So cool. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about something, but I forget. I did in Year 12. I made a mockumentary on the Blair Witch.
So you've seen it or no?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Okay.
But
it's one of those things.
Yeah. Everyone knows the Blair Witch.
Yeah. But it was more of like it's like I'll show you guys after. It's really dumb. But I'll show you later.
I've got one more,
and
I'm kind of cheating here because I put a trilogy, but it's the Evil Dead trilogy, Sam Raimi from the 80s.
That is cheating a bit, but
I'll do the first Evil Dead.
There's something about like trilogy movies.
Mm-hmm.
Certain trilogies, you can't watch them separate.
These you can. So I'll do Evil Dead, the first one.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Was made on such a super low budget, and that's why it's so important because it showed horror filmmakers and regular filmmakers, like Quentin Tarantino said, he saw this film and he was like, I can make my movies at such a low budget and be successful.
One of the characters have a chainsaw for an arm?
Yeah, it's one of the most awesome films I've ever seen. It's so funny. It's
so
gory. It's the definition of camp. I said John Carpenter is my favorite horror filmmaker, but I think it's probably Sam Raimi. Just because, I mean, Spider-Man 2, the Raimi one, that has such an insane horror sequence in it.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like when Doc Ock's getting his arms cut off. Anyway, Evil Dead is so good, and
still don't remember it.
Such a low budget.
Deep dive on Spider-Man 2.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
I reckon we need to do some more classics.
Yes.
Like Spider-Man 2.
Like Spider-Man 2. Or not like Boogie Nights, but like...
It's classic to me. What, like...
Well, it's a more...
No, I know what you said.
I think it's more of like a...
Shining's a class. Shining's a class.
When I mentioned it to my dad, he just said, yeah, that's just straight porn. Is that what you're doing on my Wi-Fi? And that was it, the conversation. But...
Your dad hasn't watched it then?
No, he clearly hasn't. And I said that. And he just went, nah, you're wrong.
Back to found footage. Like with horror movies, like I said, it's a big thing on YouTube. And have you guys heard of ARGs, alternate reality game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
So an alternate reality game is a multimedia audience involvement experience that some people create on YouTube just through YouTube videos. It's on Twitter. It happens.
Where it's like a choose your own adventure.
In a way, it's like there's a story written, but depending on how the audience interacts with the first parts, it can change later parts of it.
I believe and it happens. Markiplier did a horror thing like that.
Yeah, and it happens in multiple like medium. Like it won't just be YouTube videos. There might be websites with hidden codes and stuff like that. And when Cloverfield was released, well, before Cloverfield was released, there was a whole ARG that tell the detailed, like, that tell the story. Like Cloverfield is just there for the scare, but there's a whole like backstory for how the monster got awakened and got released and everything. And it's all to do with human hubris, as all these monster movies are. But it's really interesting how they can use an ARG like that. And I think that's where found footage comes in all these ARGs, which are quite typically horror. I've actually watched quite a lot of horror, but not horror movies, because I've looked at a lot of ARGs, and they're terrifying. They're just people on YouTube making scary stories that they present as real. That's why it's scary, is because it's on YouTube, and they make it seem like it's real at the start, and then it goes off the deep end. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to point out. You should look into the Cloverfield ARG if you're gonna watch the movie, if you haven't.
Yeah.
There was there's a horror game that I forget what it's called, but it uses like it's just a video camera going around a party with like actual people, but it's like an interactive kind of RPG thing, and I forget what it's
Oh,
called.
I saw that.
But it's
I saw
around
that on someone's YouTube.
the murder of some person, but I forget who it is. I will find it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
But it was really really effective.
ARGs are really interesting.
Find it.
They actually did one for The Dark Knight as well.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know enough about it because I haven't looked into it as much because
really sick.
the start of the video I saw wasn't very interesting. Sorry to the creator, who I've watched a lot of their other stuff and really liked, so I don't know. But yeah, they did it for The Dark Knight. They do it for a bunch of things. And when I actually came to uni, we did a meet and greet in first year before classes started. And I remember talking to people and saying, this is something I would love to make, like an ARG. I don't know if I would still make it because doing stuff on YouTube sort of really separates you from the film industry. But it's still really interesting, and it's a great example of clever, intelligent writing. And because I want to be a writer, I think that's why it interested me.
I think the problem is, though, it takes so long to do, and there's so many mediums, and if you mess it up at one tiny point, it destroys the whole thing.
Unless you're really clever about working around that mistake, which they tend to be, but not always.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, that's my list.
what Halloween costume? Okay, let's talk about Halloween then. They're your horror movies, and we will eventually watch them.
I just want to say that list is not extensive. Like, there's so many horror films out there, and so many I didn't mention, so many I haven't seen yet. You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I've seen that. I can't believe I didn't mention that. Scream. There's a bunch. But yeah, we can go into Halloween costumes. So.
But yeah, let's talk about Halloween now that we've talked about horror movies. So Jake, Halloween was massive for you, being that you lived and grew up in America. What are some of your favorite costumes that you've worn?
There's so many. You know, I was Harry Potter, of course. I was Mike Wazowski. That was an awesome costume.
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah,
you had a big green ball.
Big eye. Yeah.
You had an eye.
You know, there were so many. I was Willy Wonka. I was a bunch of like wrestlers. I was a bunch of basketball players. I was a football player. Some of my favorite costumes actually have been more recently, though, when I've been able to like, you know more movies that I actually like love now. You know, I was BoJack Horseman recently.
Wow. Well, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, I know.
Put on a horse head.
2019, after that year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, I was Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, I remember that.
Absolutely nailed the costume. It was awesome. I was Shaun of the Dead, which is also another one of my favorite horror films, horror comedy. But there's a bunch, and a bunch I'm forgetting. But yeah, those are some of mine that come to the top of my head right now.
Yeah, right. I remember I used to hate dressing up. I absolutely loved Halloween, and I always wanted to go trick-or-treating. But for some reason, I hated dressing up. I don't know why. I remember when I was really young, I think my aunt and uncle got me like a Bob the Builder costume.
Yeah.
And because they knew I loved Bob the Builder, but I hated dressing up. So my brother wore the costume. But I've gone for Halloween. I've been a ghost several times because that's the easiest one. But then I've also been a Sith.
Nice.
Because my brother got a saber forged lightsaber, like an actual light up lightsaber with removable blade. So he got that, and I borrowed it for Halloween. So I was a Sith. I've been the Doctor from like Doctor Who, and that's actually what I'm doing this year as well, because my girlfriend is going as Clara.
So you're gonna be 11th?
11th, yeah, I'm gonna be
okay,
11.
good.
No, I'm not Peter Capaldi. I'm not gonna be an old guy.
I don't know. I could say it.
We're going from one specific episode because she has a dress that looks exactly like the dress from the episode, and yeah, so that's this year. Last year, we did Corpse Bride, and I was I was the guy.
Corpse husband is somebody
else. I know.
else.
That's why I stopped saying it. I've never seen the movie, so I think his name is Victor. I was Victor, and I had my face painted all pale. I had to keep going down the elevator to let people into the apartment because we had a party. I was in the lift with some random people, and I just had like fully white
It's always
face
so awkward.
and my hair sticking up. It was really funny.
I think they'd understand.
Yeah.
When it's Halloween, it's acceptable.
Yeah. I
Unless
don't know
you
if it was
forget.
on Halloween night.
Around that time.
It was around the time, yeah.
It was like 3 months after.
No, I think it actually was on Halloween.
It's January
what else?
like 7th. Just in the,
What else have I gone as?
this is my
Well,
BoJack
while you're
Horseman
thinking-
costume.
I'll say I've been trick or treating once. I dressed up as I kind of did a zombie. I used to be really good at making like realistic scars and stuff, like with pencils and stuff on my arm. At primary school, like the teachers would freak out and be, "Oh my god, you're bleeding!" I'm like, no, I just coloured my arm in. But I did that all over my face and wore this white shirt that my mum cut holes in because, yeah, that was it. And then just some shorts and went around in Bruce and did it. And that was the only time I did it. And now from then on, I just haven't really. I've thought of it more of like a American tradition, less of like an Australian thing.
It's
I don't-
huge
I don't-
here.
Really?
Yeah.
Because
I guess just not in Canberra, maybe. I've
Possibly.
talked to a bunch of the kids that I coach at trampolining, and either they're so into it
Mhm.
or they don't care about it at all.
I think it's more that you need to find the right street. So there's a couple places in Bruce that have got like there's like a bunch of streets where everybody kind of knows everyone and they all do Halloween.
Right.
But I think probably just my street specifically, we don't. Nobody really puts out decorations. The only thing they'll put out is like Christmas trees on Christmas.
See,
And apart from that, you knock
my
on doors
house
and people
has-
will be like, "Go away, we don't have any food."
Yeah, right.
But that's
My
about it.
house has never done decorations, but that was more just my parents being like not being bothered to stick stuff up on the outside because we'd always have like lollies in case people came and knocked, and everyone else on the street would do the same even if they didn't put decorations up. But you knew the ones with the decorations were the ones that would give you the best stuff. There was a house just around the corner. They always had the most insane decorations. They would give you a whole homemade lolly bag. Like you would get like a goodie bag you'd get when you left your friend's party. It would be like that, but more insane. And there were rumors of houses that gave out like whole bags of like the Natural Confectionery Company
Yeah.
lollies
And
or
you'd
like whole
go and
blocks of
find them.
chocolate. And I don't know if that was true. I think it was at least 1 year, but not all the time. But yeah, I always did it. I definitely went as a zombie. You reminded me. I went. There were 3 of us that went as a zombie. Myself, my next door neighbor, and someone else. We were like a little zombie horde. Yeah, I can't really remember all of my costumes because I've been doing it my whole
Oh,
life.
I certainly went as Batman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did I go as? No, I didn't go as Batman. My brother might have gone as Batman.
I remember turning up to school as Anakin Skywalker once, but I think that was for like book week or
Book
something.
week, yeah.
But this was before the lightsabers you bought in the shop were like all crappy and
It's-
plastic. This was like a proper.
Oh right.
Before they were like the
was
blade
probably like a
was
Force
bad
effects or
quality.
something.
Yeah, it was it wasn't metal.
Bring
But it
back
was-
those days.
It was a really nice one. I still have it.
Yeah.
Can you bring it in?
I can bring
We
it
should
in
all
if
bring
you
in our
want.
lightsabers. Do you have a lightsaber?
Not in Australia.
So you've got
it's
one.
Probably,
For-
it's probably in storage in America.
Yeah, right.
For
I've
for
got
our
2.
Ahsoka
You bring me
episode.
one.
Yeah, I'll bring one. in.
We'll do it for our Ahsoka episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it too late to do an Ahsoka episode?
Probably. Probably. We'll just bring them in
We'll just bring them in
and
for
talk
fun.
about Star Wars.
We don't
Never
even have
do.
to talk about it. We'll just sit here with our lightsabers.
Guys,
Yeah.
we should do a deep dive on this movie. I guarantee you guys haven't seen. It's from 1980. It's called The Empire Strikes Back.
What's the Empire that's striking back?
I don't know. I don't want to
Why is it striking
You
back?
don't want to.
You know, there's a theory that all of the movies are named incorrectly.
Yeah, but I don't agree with it.
Wait, what's
no,
this theory?
I
It's
think
stupid.
it's where all of the
Titles are assigned to the wrong movies.
Yeah. but all of them fit with another movie. It's weird.
It's like The
they fit.
Phantom Menace is The Empire Strikes Back because Palpatine is the Phantom Menace in that.
Mm.
I don't think that's the correct
But-
one, but it's
Right,
that
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
no,
like they
it's-
switch it around.
Yeah, but
I
like,
don't agree with it,
what is it? Return
but I
of
think
the
it's
Jedi
fun
should be
to.
That is
number
fun.
7. The
yeah.
Last Jedi should be Return of the Jedi.
Revenge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Return of the
was the Rise of Skywalker should be A New Hope. Like it
Is this
it
people who
fits.
just don't think Rey is the Skywalker?
probably.
Okay, I'm
Or a
searched
Jedi.
it up,
This isn't very horror.
and so
sorry.
it goes.
This is important content.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I've missed it. Where is it? Okay. So the Phantom Menace. Oh, I can't find it. Never mind. Just keep moving on. I'll find it.
We'll find it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in the Star Wars episode. Yeah, there was. What's the whole deal with candy corns? I've tried them before and they're horrendous.
Oh yeah, I was never a big. I do love candy corns around
Okay, I've
Halloween.
got it. I've got
I wouldn't
it.
eat them
Sorry,
regularly.
we'll go back
Anyway,
to that.
Don't worry.
In
Okay.
episode 1, we meet Anakin Skywalker, the Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, okay.
Years later, we find out that Palpatine, leader of the Sith, has ordered an army to destroy the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith is episode 2. In episode 3, Order 66 happens, and the clones attack. Attack of the Clones.
Oh, God.
In episode 4, Obi-Wan teaches Luke that it's time for the Jedi to return. Return of the Jedi. In episode 5, Yoda teaches Luke how to use the Force. The Force Awakens. In episode 6, both Yoda and Anakin die, which makes Luke the last Jedi. And then, after the Empire is destroyed, a new Empire comes. The Empire strikes back. Come on, guys. In episode 8, Luke trains Rey and then sacrifices
Were we
himself
meant
to
to be
give the
guessing these, or are you
to
just
give the
telling me?
Resistance a new hope. No, that's literally what it says. Is
Oh.
come on, guys.
Jeez.
So episode 8, a new hope, because Luke trains Rey and then sacrifices himself to the
Mm.
Resistance.
Oh, the last
um,
one.
In episode 9, Palpatine returns from the dead, making him the Phantom Menace.
Yo, the Force Awakens one got me. That was
Empire
crazy.
Strikes
Yeah,
Back being
that
called
was-
the
yeah,
Force
That's
Awakens.
crazy.
I don't agree with it, but it's a bit of fun.
Some of those are very far fetched.
Yeah.
That one was crazy though.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Let's-
Let's go back to
Yeah,
favorite
let's talk about Halloween
candy.
lollies or
candy.
Yeah, this
Candies.
is gonna be different.
So I know here we've got, well, we don't have as a selection as the US does, but we do have some very iconic lollies.
I know for Halloween, quite a lot of people get those big bags of like Cadbury wrapped chocolates, like the
Mhm.
little chocolate bars,
Like a bunch of
crunchies,
favorites.
picnics. Yeah, like favorite sorts of
or
things.
The Allen's like meat party bag or something.
Yeah. Normally, if you're not unhinged, you give out wrapped things
Yeah.
because
Or you have like a little
a little goodie
Ziploc.
bag. Yeah, you give them like a thing. They're enclosed.
Mm.
Oh, I was just reminded of one time I went trick or treating. Went up to a house, knocked on the door.
Mm.
Nothing happened. I knocked again, and right as I knocked, the guy opened it and yelled, "Boo!" And I fell over backwards and fell down his 3 stairs on the
No
patio
way.
because I was so scared.
He must have felt
And
so bad.
No, he was laughing
Oh,
so
okay.
hard. He
Fair
didn't
enough.
care.
Wait,
at
how
all.
old were you?
I was like 7.
This is trick or treating.
Or younger.
He chose trick. That's great.
Yeah.
When
Hey.
maybe that's what I should do instead of trick or treat. I'll be like,
Damn, you
trick,
would love that,
smoke
right?
bomb goes off. and
Smoke bomb?
Smoke
You
bomb
s-
goes
if-
off. I
if
pull a
you
Batman and
say-
just disappear.
If you say trick, you still have to give them a treat. You still have to give them something if they.
oh yeah,
if
like
they do a
afterwards,
trick.
but I'll still mess with them.
Yeah.
I'll be like Mysterio and I don't know, my whole garden lights on fire or something. I don't know. I'll talk with the VFX department, but
The VFX. Is
the VFX department, which is currently one dude on a laptop.
Okay, Jake, what's your favorite
Sorry,
Halloween
what
candy?
were you gonna say before?
What was I gonna
You
say?
started
I
talking
was
about
talking
candy
about
corn.
Tricking and
Oh,
tricking.
I was gonna say you would thrive in tricking. That'd
Okay.
be
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
And I was gonna say candy corn was never my favorite, but it's good to eat around Halloween.
I've never had it.
It looks crunchy.
it-
It's not. It's like
It's too sweet.
Squishy.
I really want to try. I've always wanted to try it.
wow.
I'll bring it
Yeah.
in.
Is it from
Please
like
do.
those old Zach King vines where he like throws up candy corn and it looks really delicious?
I don't know, maybe. I think I've just seen it in American movies and TV
Yeah,
shows,
it's,
and just
it's like the iconic Halloween
Yeah.
thing.
Because it's like orange and
Mm.
yellow and white.
But I love Reese's and Milky Ways and Snickers
Well,
and
Reese's is just
Kit Kats and
the
I've
Halloween.
never
yeah.
had any.
Reese's is Halloween to me.
Yeah.
Because that's also orange, and
Because it's orange.
and that's what I would get the most. I
Because-
think.
For you, Halloween is in autumn, fall.
Oh
It's
yeah,
in fall.
yeah, that's so
Fall.
weird. Yeah,
But
Oh,
here
I
it's in
forgot
spring.
that's
Like it's
summer.
really hot here on Halloween. But in
Yeah.
America,
It's
it's cold.
kind of cold. Yeah.
Well, it's not that cold. It's
No,
autumn,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's getting cold.
yeah. You
And
could
all
rock
the
a,
leaves
a
are
short
falling off the
sleeve,
trees.
but not a short sleeve and shorts. So
Yeah.
you have to tailor your costume correctly.
Yeah.
I do remember that
Which made it interesting.
the first I Ever Wimpy Kid movie
Mm-hmm.
where they get chased by the bullies into the graveyard,
Yeah.
and that was like, oh, okay, someone's gonna jump out and hurt them. But
And the dad scares them at
that
their own
was-
house.
throwing, was it a water cooler of?
I watched
Water,
that
I
recently
think.
and it killed me.
Yeah. that is what I think of when I think of Halloween in the US.
Mm.
Oh, just mischief and mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
Kinda.
certainly a lot of that.
And like it's dark when you go trick or treating.
Yeah.
TPing.
For us it's light when you go trick or treating.
Have you heard of TPing?
Yeah.
Yeah, used to do that all
That's
the time.
toilet
Such,
paper.
So
such-
mean.
Such a bad
To
act.
go and clean, you have to go and clean up your house.
It
Get all the
happened to
toilet
me.
paper.
Or like
did it
getting
to
egged
people.
and-
Never egged anyone.
No.
Never egged anyone.
I think that's what the really mean people do.
yeah.
It's like TPing is a bit of fun and it's not great for the environment, but it's
It's
not
toilet
the end of the
papering
world.
for
It's just
anyone who
toilet
doesn't
paper,
know.
right?
yeah.
So, but egging,
Egging
it's
is
really bad
evil.
for the paint and
That's
for
just
the
messed up.
house. And if you hit someone, injury.
Yeah.
So Reese's, you reckon?
Probably my favorite. You know, I love Snickers as well. Milky Ways. It's hard to separate between candies in general and then like Halloween candies.
Yeah, that's so fair.
Because
Because
there's a lot of blend.
yeah, I'm not sure I have a favorite Halloween candy, but if I went out on Halloween and I got just like regular lollies that I would get in a lolly bag,
Mm-hmm.
not fun. But if I got something like, yeah, like a Snickers,
Yeah, you need
even just like you
you
get
need
the
the
little,
special
you get the
stuff.
bite-sized ones.
Yeah.
But if I got like a Snickers, or I got, yeah, that sort of thing, or if I got something like trolley gummy worms, not gummy worms, like sour worms
Yeah.
and things like that in those little packages, that's what it feels like for me. That's your Halloween stuff.
Yeah, mine's.
But then also, people go to Big W and get the really cheap, really bad, hard candy that are wrapped in like, wrapped up to look like a little pineapple or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is probably what I think of most when I think of Halloween
Oh, really?
lollies here in
Oh, wow.
Australia.
I will say movies. Let's bring it back to movies because that's what we're all about. Movies make Halloween candies look so much more delicious than they are. Like, have you guys seen Scooby Doo and the Goblin King? Which
No.
is like,
Possibly.
it's like a Halloween movie.
It's animated, right?
Yeah, it's
this is not
animated.
one of the live action
No,
ones.
no.
There's only 2 of those.
It's animated where Scooby and Shaggy have these big sacks of like, it's just this weird purple like fluffy stuff. I don't know, but it looks so delicious. But then when you get like actual Halloween candy, it's all wrapped and it's just like lollies and stuff.
You haven't tried American candy,
No, is it like fluffy?
especially on Halloween. It just tastes even better because it's all free.
Oh, okay.
Just
Yeah,
seeing,
yeah,
seeing
that one.
candy wrapped. It's like a
okay.
little
It's
circle.
not that.
seeing
No.
seeing anything wrapped like a little circle with 2 little bows sort of things coming out the side.
Mm.
That's quintessential animated candy. You know what this has reminded me of?
What?
There's this little clear wrapped thing with a bunch of little circles in it. And I can't remember what they're called, but they're like these
Oh,
tiny
yeah,
little
yeah,
sour
yeah.
fizzy guys.
Yeah,
They're not-
they were called Smarties, and
No,
That's
no.
not- Smarties
I know they're
here are
different.
like
I know they're
a
different.
rip-off M&Ms.
yeah,
They're you know the bracelet things,
Yeah.
like those.
Like those, but without the string through the middle. They'd come wrapped in a tube,
not
and you'd unpeel
Lifesavers?
it. They're sort of like mini Lifesavers, but it's not the Lifesaver brand.
Oh my God,
Anyway,
this is gonna make me so mad because I can't.
I will. I need to find it, but they're not like it's not called. Is it Fruit Tingles?
maybe. Like now we're all.
Oh,
searching
the
it.
These.
Yes.
See, they're called Smarties in America. But
Yeah, but
Oh,
ours are in like
okay.
where it's red on that. It's black here.
Oh.
right. Weird.
I don't know what they're called. Mini Lifesaver.
Fizzers?
That sounds familiar. Or like
Rockets?
musk sticks, or like what are they called?
No.
I don't know. The names have changed over generations. Like my mum will call them
This
something
isn't-
different to what I call them, and
These are none of yours, right?
Fruit
Oh,
tingle.
the fizzes one in the middle. I've definitely
Yeah, the
had.
fizzes. That's what it is. People definitely, they. It depends where you are, but they're all called something different.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Those
Okay.
are really good. Did you, one thing I want to ask you, Ali, did you trick or treat with like your pillowcase?
I always wanted to,
Yeah.
but my parents would be like, "That's way too much." So I would instead have like a bucket
Yeah.
that looked like a pumpkin bucket, plastic. It was decent size. Like if it got completely full, you had nailed it. But I never was allowed to fill up a whole pillowcase.
Did you ever fill up a pillowcase?
Shout out to my parents to letting me use my pillowcase.
Did you ever fill one up to the top?
Oh yeah.
And then get like cavities and
Yeah.
My brother has vomited on Halloween night from
Oh.
stuff.
I
in his
probably
face.
have to.
I've never vomited on Halloween night.
I had to share my candy with my parents, but they let me do that. So shout out.
One Halloween candy lolly that you do get is like ones that are specifically made only for Halloween. They're like body parts, like
Oh,
chewy
yeah, yeah, yeah.
eyeballs,
Oh my god!
or things like that.
The
Those are
eyes
cool.
and the teeth.
kind
the
of
lips.
like
And
the,
then
the
Trolley
burgers.
also does
Yeah.
specific Halloween ones. But yeah, you'd also get like food.
I
You
used
get
to
the
get
Trolley foods.
Krabby Patty ones of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
When
Whiz
you'd,
Fizz.
like, Whiz Fizz. That
Whiz Fizz
that's
was
amazing.
definitely a Halloween
Whiz
candy.
Fizz like sherbet kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, that was cool.
Anyway, it's time for quick pitch. Horror mode.
edition.
So I know we've done a horror movie before,
Mm.
but this time we're doing a Halloween horror movie.
Yeah.
So it's set
For-
on
It
Halloween.
has to be set
It
during
has to be
Halloween.
set during Halloween. And Jake, you wrote this as a note. The director has to have, and the actor both have to never have done a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is
So we need to decide as a group. We're not just one person picks one and
Yeah,
one
yeah,
person
yeah.
picks the
Yeah.
other.
well. Let's do a director.
We start with director for sure.
Start with director.
Last time when we did our horror movie, it was Taika Waititi. So not Taika.
Damn. I'm just trying to think of directors. This is bad. I need to watch the credits of movies more.
How about?
I've always said I wanted Christopher Nolan to make a horror film.
I think we talked about
We
that.
have
did
already
talk
done
about that,
Nolan.
and we have done Nolan.
But we could do him again.
No, what
No, it's
about
okay.
what about someone who's done like a kids movie? But get them to do.
Like
A
I was
Halloween
gonna say
movie.
John Lasseter, but he's like a producer.
I'm gonna say Wes Anderson, but we've been talking about him too much.
I'm sick of Wes Anderson.
Can we're putting a
ban.
hiatus on him for a ban on Wes Anderson for the next month.
Watch, he's
or
gonna
two.
Now
announce,
if
he's
you
gonna announce
mention
in he's gonna announce in a week where he's dropping a film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
and we can't talk about it.
Now, if you mention his name for the next 3 recordings, you have to stop talking for 5 minutes.
Okay, so the 31st of November. Or you owe everyone a buck or something.
Yeah, you give us all a bag of Halloween candy.
Yeah, you guys listening.
No, Jake does because he's the one
Oh,
who's going to
Jake does.
mention Wes Anderson.
Okay.
going
Starting
to mention
now. Let's do Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Oh,
Yep.
yes, that's so good.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff.
So, how many explosions are we having?
10,000.
What's exploding? But they're
Candy.
not. They're not. They're not explosions of fire.
They're
They're explosions of
explosions of
blood.
Blood. Ooh. Okay. And let's do an actor. Let's do.
Oh my god! I was going to say Shia LaBeouf as a joke because obviously
But he's
Michael Bay has
yeah,
worked
yeah.
with Shia LaBeouf.
Surely
Because
he
have
needs
you
to.
heard the Shia LaBeouf song?
I have. It's amazing. Google it.
You should look it up, Jake. It's so funny and it fits perfectly with like a Halloween
A
thing.
song he made.
No.
It's
It's
about
about-
it's a
it's
YouTube
about
video.
him.
Just
It's
go to
it's
YouTube
fake.
and Google Shia LaBeouf song. It's really good.
Um,
Watch it another time. Let's do Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, Michael Bay, horror movie set on Halloween.
Harrison
with-
Ford would probably hate working with Michael Bay.
He would,
He would despise it.
because Harrison Ford is a god and Michael Bay is annoying.
But also Harrison
But-
Ford is just like anti
Action,
fun.
fun. Yeah, fair enough.
You're right, but also like he's made some of the most fun movies of all time.
I know,
which
but
is
he
so
hates
funny.
he hates Han Solo.
I know.
He loves
I think he
Indiana
loves
Jones.
Indy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does love Indy. But yeah. Yeah, that'd be an interesting
It's just so
combination
funny though
to
that
watch
he
for
like
work.
hates fun and he's in like some of the most
Some of the best
awesome
movies
films ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So start off. It's a dark street. Harrison Ford is walking down with his kid, or
Yep.
he is the kid.
Yeah.
He is the kid.
Well,
No.
it could be this scene is in Harrison Ford's childhood,
Um.
and it's a traumatic event that happens, and then he hates Halloween forever,
So he's
and he's sort of like this
Oh,
Halloween
that's
Scrooge.
cold open on his
On-
childhood.
on his childhood where he gets scared and he falls down the stairs.
But is this a fun, like, is it a movie for 12 to 15-year-olds?
Horror.
It's okay, but is it a horror movie for 12 to
Like
15?
he's properly scared of this house.
Oh,
And then
that's
he
good.
goes back when he's an adult, knocks
it's
on
a
the door,
serial
and the door
killer.
just slowly swings open, and he wanders in like any dumb horror movie protagonist.
But he's Harrison Ford. He's not a dumb.
He has a
horror
gun.
movie.
We can't make Harrison Ford dumb.
He has a gun.
Not in his old.
He's
age.
like, he heard screams. He wants to go and help a child out. He was like, I was in that situation when I was a kid. Wanders in with, I don't know, a bat or something. Something quintessentially American on Halloween, protecting their land. And then it's like this whole horror house, and he finds the kid, but he also finds the old man that scared him when he was a kid, and they make up.
And we see him as a kid.
And
in
he
there.
flashes back.
Well, not like a flashback, but like he's seeing himself as a kid
Yeah,
running throughout the house.
and he's sad, and then he's redeemed, I guess.
But
Yeah.
in the middle of all that, there's lots of action
Yeah.
and explosions of blood, and lots of people die because they keep getting sucked into the house.
And the
And Harrison
military
Ford.
shows up.
And then the military all like at the end of Kingsman when everyone's head explodes
just like
into
that.
color. It's like that, but it's actually blood. Which is
Wow,
what it
that's-
would
This
that
would be a
would
good
really
movie.
This is
if
gonna
it
be
wasn't
rated
directed
like
by Michael Bay.
R18 plus. This is messed up, but yeah. All right, I like it.
Yeah. And what's it called?
Halloween Fumbles. I don't know. That's bad.
The
So-
Haunting of the Hallowed House.
Heads
You know-
roll.
you know how-
heads will
Heads,
roll.
heads will roll.
Heads
That's
will
probably
roll.
already a thing.
It's a song.
You know how every like Halloween,
Hallowed heads will
every
roll.
horror TV show coming out lately is like the Haunting of Something House or the
Yeah.
Haunting of Something Manor.
Blame Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, but he wrote all of them, so he can do what he wants. He can name them all the same thing.
The haunting of the old guy's house.
Yeah, I think Heads Will Roll is fun. That's a campy.
It's a song title name.
Heads
I know.
heads
but
will
we should play that
The
song.
song would
in the
play.
heads
movie.
will blow. Minds will blow. Heads will blow.
Heads Will Blow.
Because they don't roll, they explode.
True.
Okay. Yeah.
Heads Will Blow.
Good play on the song. We'll do a
Okay,
remix.
Let me write that down.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
I wish this wasn't directed by Mike.
while Ollie's doing that, couple things to let you guys know about. We're toying with a new idea of, on the Discord, we'll create a new channel, and on there you guys stick in movie plots but explained badly. And then we'll read them out and try and guess them on the show. And yeah, let us know. We've had, let me just find some examples, but we've had some really good ones, and thought, why not make a whole a section about this? So one of the ones that we had was a talking frog convinces his son to kill his dad, and that
we'll leave that with you.
yeah, and that was the Empire Strikes Back.
Well,
Oh,
I guess
we
we
didn't-
Okay, well, okay,
won't
so
leave it with
hang on,
you.
hang on. Okay, how about this one? Everyone, you have to guess this one. Everyone tries the ice bucket challenge.
Oh,
So
that's one of my
we
favorite ones.
we
Guess
found
it?
this one hard.
Yeah.
yeah, this
But-
one was really
But
hard.
once you hear it, you absolutely makes
Yeah.
sense.
So we will
That's good.
put some stuff up in the Discord, and you guys pitch us your ideas. And finally, we've got the UC Film Festival coming up at the end of the year. It's likely to be early December.
Yeah.
More details will come. Please submit all your films. A link will come out very soon to submit your films to. Please stick them in. Stick all. There's prizes for every single category. We've got categories from first year films all the way to third year films, different genres, the cinematography, the score, the directing, best overall film. Please
Best
submit those.
overalls in the film. No, that's not a category.
Well, it is now. If you have overalls in your films, submit them. They will probably win because not many people wear overalls.
I'm gonna insert a shot of overalls into our film now.
Okay,
Just
good.
randomly.
Good.
It's just gonna be a stock photo.
It's just
image.
a PNG of like
Yeah.
overalls with the not even the background's removed, still with
Yeah.
the
And
checkerboard.
end credits.
and it still says Getty Images on it.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay. Well,
when
that's
is
it
the
for us.
next deep dive?
Oh,
Oh, not for a while. I think
not next week. We'll talk about this next week.
Okay, so
so. Our last deep dive. Oh, this is really confusing. This episode is releasing on Halloween. We've already recorded a deep dive that comes out in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It's the Royal Tenenbaums. So you'll hear about that in 2 weeks. And then after that, 2 weeks after that, we'll do a different deep dive.
okay, sounds good. Just wanted to get my mind back in the schedule.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us today. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.